I'm going to move next to
Mr. Milton Samuda, President of the JCC, to give his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Welcome to everybody. I suppose we call it cyberspace. I want to give a different framework with some underpinnings that I think we can all identify with, and to say that much of what Bruce and Damien have addressed previously, I think many of us in the private sector identify with. The topic this morning, growth enhancing measures for the Jamaican economy, fits neatly into the primary activity which the JCC has identified for itself in 2011. And that activity is in fact a direct result of our first proposal, which is that there has to be a fundamental shift in mindset in how we assess performance. We start with mindset because so much of what mankind achieves starts in the mind. On Sunday, November 28, 2010, I launched what was called the JCC's Growth Agenda campaign during a speech to the Westmoreland Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And that launch came out of a previous address to the Rotary Club of Kingston on Thursday, November 18, 2010, in which I asserted that, and I quote, "economic growth is the great imperative for Jamaica in the 21st century," unquote. That view was embraced by the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce and led to the adoption of the Growth Agenda for Jamaica, which simply put is an insistence that all stakeholders, government, opposition, private sector, unions, civil society, and citizens generally must sign on to the imperative of economic growth, and that all national strategies and programs must be geared towards and judged against that imperative. In our view, there's no goal, no aim, no destination for Jamaica more imperative than constant, robust economic growth. And every single Jamaican must get involved. So when you look at our national strategies, whether it be for education, labor, sports, culture, tourism, mining, energy, whatever it is, you must judge those strategies against their ability to contribute to economic growth. And by way of example, I just want to indicate that when I say everything, literally everything can be tweaked in that way. If you think about our welfare system, for example, in about November of last year, the Prime Minister, and I commended him for it, announced that they would be adding a new dimension to the PATH program, which would create a welfare to work sub-program to make sure that people didn't stay on the PATH program forever. And it is interesting that that announcement was made at the launch of the latest Jamaica Survey of Living Conditions report, which confirmed the continued rise in poverty from 9.9% in 2007 to 16.5% in 2009. So I think it is clear that even in relation to welfare, you have to move towards growth. The second thing is, of course, you can't have growth without job creation, because you have to put people to work. So our second proposal, well within our growth agenda, is to insist that we all create an environment for job creation. And I say all because it can't be left only to the government. Much of what we now suffer is because the government has been placed in the position of primary driver of the economy. The fact is that what we need to do, as Damien indicated, is already in the public domain, and there's already consensus around it. We know that you need to contain crime, we know that you need to eliminate bureaucracy or at least reduce it to tolerable levels. We know that you have to reduce the size of government. We know that interest rates have to come down, as Bruce indicated. We know that you have to promote public-private partnerships and vigorously promote local investment in much the same way that you now promote foreign direct investment. It's all there. And of course, you have to eliminate corruption. And by the way, that means eliminating corruption on both sides of the fence. Because if somebody in the public sector is accepting a bribe, it means that somebody in the private sector is paying it. and we need to look at both. The third proposal is in relation to our workforce. Yes, you get people back to work, but that alone isn't enough. We must make them productive and internationally competitive. And we should be reminded that over the period 1972 to 2070, the productivity of the Jamaican worker declined by an average of 1.3% per annum, while our Latin American and Caribbean neighbors were experiencing labor productivity growth averaging more than 1.5% per annum. In fact, in the 5-year period, 2003 to 2007, labor productivity growth in Latin America and the Caribbean accelerated to over 2% per annum, while the output produced by the Jamaican worker on average declined by 1.8%. That underproductivity is one of the bases for our increasing poverty and, of course, the lack of growth. So one of the sub-imperatives is that at the macro level, government, and at the micro level, the private sector must create the environment for greater worker productivity. And it cannot be the fault of the Jamaican worker alone, because after all, this is the same man or woman who after 1.5 hours in the air suddenly becomes productive when they land in the USA. So there must be something fundamental that we can do. Fourth, I think we need to look at how we save. We need to teach Jamaica to save. Spending is important, it's a great stimulus for economic activity, but saving is critical, and we need to teach and encourage responsible spending and equally responsible saving. We cannot continue to live off of the effort and savings of others, whether through loans or through remittances from family. Improving our savings has to be part of our growth agenda. I point you to the growth report, Strategies for Sustained Growth and Inclusive Development, from the Commission on Growth and Development, in which it identified high levels of savings and investments as one of the critical factors in the success of 13 economies, which within the period commencing 1950 have grown at an average rate of 7% a year or more for 25 years or longer. That's not a coincidence. Fifth, we need to refashion our education system. Can't be left out. Bruce alluded to it. The education system fundamentally has to address growth. You need to literally teach the imperative of growth in the schools so that your curricula starts to reflect what is necessary to enhance growth. So from the earliest stages, you need to teach the thrift, teach the value of hard work, teach tourism, teach the benefit of foreign investment, the benefit of monetizing talent and innovation, especially in a creatively rich country like Jamaica. Teach the economic enhancement that goes with science and technology. And importantly, we must fit our children for the jobs that, not that are needed now, but that will be needed 10 years from now. Lastly, I think we need to create a meritocracy. One in which we recognize and salute excellence. One in which advancement occurs because it is merited and not, for example, because of connections. Our failure to insist on standards and excellence has resulted in a sort of pernicious mediocrity that's almost ubiquitous in nature. And so nowadays, every time we espy something that is of excellent, the shouts go up in almost orgasmic fashion. We have to insist, and more importantly, we who insist have to act on the standards that we set for others. So, in the private sector, for example, we can't speak about integrity while facilitating corruption. We can't speak about efficiency while participating in the institutionalization of bureaucracy, or pay lip service to morality and decency while we redefine those to accommodate our own behaviors. Now, you know, people may say that, well, what does that really have to do with economic growth? But the truth of the matter is that the growth agenda has to be based on how it is we operate and how it is we do business. Importantly, it has to operate also on the messages that we send. So again, looking at my own sphere, the private sector, you can't in the one breath put on a suit, go with a check for $5,000, give it to a needy school, take a photo opportunity, do that on Monday, and then on Friday, you put on a polo shirt, branded, walk with a check for $500,000, and give it in donation for the staging of a show in which all of the values and attitudes that you want to encourage in the society, including disdain for criminality, will in fact be eroded. The growth agenda, ladies and gentlemen, is a national agenda which calls for every Jamaican who means the country well to become immediately engaged in advancing our thrust for national growth. It is a common script which we must all read from and act out in unison, and which dictates across the political and social divides. In going for growth, there is no labor and management, no public and private sector, no PNP, JLP or other P, no governing party and opposition. We are all to concentrate on the centrality of the push towards overriding, overarching, underpinning economic growth. Finally, the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce wants to identify with the view that the fundamentals are now starting to trend in the correct direction. There has been tremendous achievement in terms of a return to fiscal discipline and the stabilization of the macroeconomic framework. But that alone is not enough. Stagnation is oftentimes mistaken for stability. We now need stimulus, and that is what we have to agree on.
Thank you very much, Milton.